Welcome back to the Digital Nomad Experts Podcast, brought to you by Commute. Today I'm really excited. I've got a special guest here who I met in Tbilisi, Matt Davison. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's very, very good to be here on the podcast.
How's your experience been in Tbilisi?
I think pretty good. The food's been amazing. The hospitality's been amazing. The English level, it's been really easy. I think sometimes in the Balkan countries it's a bit difficult to travel to a certain degree. But I've thoroughly enjoyed being here, and the weather's been pretty cool. So I think
it does. It's kind of a perfect digital nomad spot. You got all the coffee shops, you got the good food, you got the lower cost of living, accommodation's pretty good. It's like, still.
Yeah, it really does. I think the only thing it's missing is a beach, but I'm hoping to check out Tbilisi or something like that. There's a beach town, so I'm hoping to head to that part. But yeah, it definitely ticks a lot of the boxes. It was so unassuming. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be
Well,
so
we'll have
good,
to get into
so
Tbilisi a little bit more detail, because I do like to explain the places I'm going to fellow listeners, because it's fun to pick out your first location. Like, I'm hearing from firsthand from people that are actually there, who have checked it out. It's kind of cool to hear about and start to mentally plan a travel log. But before we do that, let me introduce you really briefly. This is Matt Davison, a fellow SEO. I was really excited to have this conversation because I don't run into a whole lot of SEO experts on the road, and especially SEO digital nomads. So we had an exciting conversation on our way to play some paddle here in Tbilisi, and I thought it would be great to talk about your story coming into becoming a digital nomad. And then also I'd like to talk a little bit more about actually SEO in itself as a potential career option for people who want to become remote workers and travelers. So let's just take these things in order. Do you want to just give me a little brief background about yourself?
So I'm Matt. I come from South Africa, Cape Town, originally, but I'm on the road about 9 months a year now, roughly. I started in SEO maybe like 10, 12 years ago, and I kind of fell into it. It wasn't a thing then, really. There was like Whiteboard Fridays and different ways to kind of learn SEO. It wasn't a big thing, and it's become a huge thing, I think. Now it's quite an important part of the digital marketing channels. And I kind of fell into it, 12 years ago, and then went over to Thailand to teach English. And I didn't think that I would become a digital nomad like that way. I thought I would do it through being a travel agent, because that was one of my first jobs. I thought that's how I'm going to travel the world, is being a travel agent. They don't get to travel. I learned that the hard way. I think they get like one per year. And then, headed off to Thailand, and that was the start, and that was like 10 years ago.
Where'd you go in Thailand?
So I've been doing this for a while. I did a bit of everything. I went with a friend for like a month or two, and we kind of went to Koh Phangan, went to Bangkok, went to Phuket, went to Phi Phi, and kind of try to suss out where was a good place to teach, because I'd heard good things about teaching in Thailand. It was a very popular thing. I think it still is quite a big popular thing to do.
Yeah, sorry. Let's pause there real quick. I'm going to let you keep going, but tell me a little bit about teaching as a digital nomad, and like how is that as far as a profession for traveling?
I think it's one of the better professions for traveling to start. I think that it's fairly easy-ish to get in, but you are fairly limited as well. So I think that like how I got into it was teaching in person, and that because it was 10 years ago. I think there's a lot of like Skype and also the online platforms you can use now. But it was pretty good, but it's very limiting because you have to be available, 5 times a week and certain hours, and you get attached to your school or your kids, and you stay there for years on end. So it's not like exactly as free as moving around. And then I imagine that there's online teaching. I haven't got into that myself, but a lot of my team started in that to a certain degree, and now they don't do that so much. But I think it's one of the starting entry points.
Yeah, I've met a few people that have kind of made their way. They started their journey as becoming a teacher. Like I've known some people that went to China for a while, and it's like, well, I kind of like this, but also a little bit limiting teaching in person. So there are so many more opportunities popping up for people to teach online. And it's interesting, because for those of you that are bilingual, and some people I know actually weren't even bilingual. They were teaching English and teaching Spanish to people that didn't know the language, and they didn't know their language, and it was still somehow worked out. It was a weird thing. I had an ex-girlfriend that did that. She teach English, didn't speak a word of Chinese, but was able to work from wherever and do her job.
Yeah, it's such a weird concept, going to go to these countries and not speaking a word of their language, and then being able to just, I think you learn to sign really good, and like you could have pidgin English, very, very basic English that doesn't have like future tense and past tense, and it kind of goes against teaching too. So it's like this weird kind of place that you get to. But yeah, it's a really nice way to start the journey. And if you enjoy teaching, then I think it's a good way to continue it. I know a lot of people who still kind of do it.
Thanks for letting me derail to teaching for a moment there. There was something that I wanted to talk about for a while, completely forgot, didn't bookmark it, and then you brought it up, so I had to get into it a little bit. Let's go back to you started SEO and then kind of got out of it. You're watching some Rand Fishkin's whiteboards and then got into teaching. What brought you back in, and what's that experience been like?
I think I always wanted. I mean, I loved SEO. I did a lot of jobs in university, like bartending, restaurant jobs, promotion jobs, and the job that I liked the most was updating websites. So like uploading stuff to websites, which is quite an arduous job to do. But I think that's also one of the big entry points is just like helping people with their websites and doing, you can always say like VA work to a certain degree. And I discovered, and I was also a travel agent at the time. So I was updating the travel website and I was a travel agent, and I discovered Rand Fitch's Whiteboard Fridays. And I was like, wow, there's this thing you can do called SEO that I don't have to speak to someone on the phone and sell them. Like I can get them to go to a website and click a couple of buttons and they'll buy something. And I think that was huge for me. That was like, because I wasn't a big fan of the whole like get on the phone, do the sales thing. And I think there's some people who are very good at that. I'm not one of them. Yeah. So, and then Whiteboard Fridays was amazing. I think every SEO from like a decade ago definitely knows about Whiteboard Friday and Moz and Rand Fishkin. Yeah, I got super into that and got pretty good at SEO, but I wanted to travel and my company wouldn't like keep me on if I was doing this, which is kind of strange for me. So I was like, okay, what's the next step? And I'd heard a lot of people doing the whole TEFL thing. And I also had like applied for a couple of jobs and I hadn't got them. So I was like, well, let me go do this TEFL thing and go overseas for a year or two and see what it's like. And then I did that and I really liked it to a certain degree, but I'd heard, people were starting their side businesses while doing this, like maybe a fitness course or someone's building a website. And I would hear about these things, and I had been building websites and helping websites for quite a while. So yeah, I just kind of started helping people, just saying like, hey, you could do this and you could do that, not thinking that it would amount to anything. And then word got out that I kind of could help out with websites and do SEO. And the next thing I knew, I was doing more SEO related work than teaching, and I didn't want to teach forever. I think teaching is an amazing job, but it's mentally taxing. I think there's a reason why teachers have like 2 months of holiday a year, because they need it. So it was really cool, but SEO was always an interest, an amazing kind of interest, because it's so competitive. It's always growing. It's in tech. It's in psychology. It's in, it involves so many different elements that I liked, and it was, I could travel and do it.
I think it's awesome that you said initially you started by updating websites, because a lot of people think that these skill sets you need, like a lot of the people that we travel with, are really, really specialized. And well, some of them are for sure. But that initial foot in the door, it can be just updating websites. And back in my old company, I hired people that had English degrees, that had teaching degrees, and never even opened up WordPress before, had no idea. And you're able to teach this thing, and these people you're able to figure out WordPress. You can navigate even like an email marketing system, and these skills are so needed by so many like small business owners, big business owners and stuff. And more and more and more, they're getting virtual assistants to do this type of work. So it is such an awesome entry point for sure. And it's kind of fun because you build your skill set across so many different tech stacks.
I think that's so important, yeah, because you don't know if you're like SEO or you're like email outreach or you're like social media or you're like updating websites or being a organizer. So I think going the VA route, I mean, that's basically the route that I kind of went, but went more into the website kind of updating side, is a very easy entry point. And it gives you a really holistic kind of knowledge on the different aspects. And then you can kind of specialize to a certain degree. So yeah, I hire a lot of people now that do SEO courses. And I'm so curious, like, what are these SEO courses? Because I kind of think that like you can do a course, but you also need to do the practical part of it and like see the results of it to a certain degree. So yeah, I think just doing, honestly, is one of the best ways that you can kind of do it and get an entry point or an entry job, and then kind of build on that with courses and
100%. I
videos and
learned just
whatever
by
it might
building
be.
a website and just messing with things and saw what happened. I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Change a title tag, and all of a sudden people start clicking on things more often. It's like, that's fun because then you get that, what you're talking about, that cross section of psychology, and you're using math to kind of like uncover what that psychology looks like. And then you get to manipulate it, and then people pay you to do it. It's such a fun job to do.
Yeah, I love it, and you get to see the results. I think it's very like you get to see the statistical increase in the clicks or the impressions, or you get to track your competitors and see how so it can be that competitive element too. So yeah, it's a fun one.
Let's go back to your story a little bit back. So you built up a few clients and you're mostly updating websites and started getting into SEO. How did your career start to progress after that point?
It was kind of interesting. I think a big pivotal point for me was going to a conference. So I'd been traveling for 2 or 3 years in Southeast Asia, which is, I think, a great entry point for a lot of people. I think South America too, because it's quite affordable living. South Africa, I think, is one of them too. But yeah, so I was traveling and doing an audit here or there, but the work wasn't consistent. I think in the SEO thing, if you get a retainers, that's really great, but the work wasn't consistent. And then I went to it wasn't even a conference, it was like a pre-conference. It's called the Chiang Mai SEO conference now, but it wasn't something then. It was just a bunch of SEOs meeting once a year. And I went there and I heard about these guys making thousands, tens of thousands through passive income through affiliate marketing. And this blew my mind. I was like, oh, I don't need to work with clients. I don't need to get retainers. I just need to build my own websites and make money through affiliates. And I'd always kind of like been wary of affiliates and like not understood it or wanted to jump into it. And I think that was pivotal for me. And then, so that was happening on the one side. And then something else happened on the other side, which was a guy in a Facebook group that was South African posted about a website, which was a things to do website. And that was a huge problem for me being a digital nomad, is like, I struggled to find things to do and events to socialize traveling. This was like maybe 7 years ago, so a bit different to the landscape that we have now. They were struggling a little bit with user growth, and I saw the website and it solved a huge pain point for me. I was super passionate about the space. The guy had understood SEO, which is always a bit nicer when you don't have to like teach it and get buy-in from the clients or the people. So I helped out with that and then decided to invest in that business and go back to South Africa and work on that business. So these two things happened where I discovered you can make so much money through the affiliate passive side. And the other thing happened was that I discovered this cool thing that I was very passionate about, but I had to go back to South Africa to kind of work on that to a certain degree.
So you went back to South Africa, stopped traveling for a little while, and started building that up?
Yeah, so I went back to South Africa. I had a 10-month contract to kind of build them up to a certain place. And while being back in South Africa, I discovered that I was hiring like Filipinos and Indians and a lot of people in Southeast Asia and struggling with getting things done. But in South Africa, I built a team to help the startup. And we were there, I was there for like 8 months or 10 months and my contract finished. And then I decided to maybe start my company there because I was there and it was quite easy to hire people. I'd built teams before. It just seemed logical. So I stayed in South Africa for, I think, 2 years. 2 years in that period. So basically a year at the other company and then a year building my company. And then as soon as we were kind of stable again.
So when you started hiring people for your company, what kind of skill sets were you looking for in these people? What kind of applicants were you screening?
Just attitude. Like, I didn't really care about what degree you had. So I was hiring interns. So both the companies were startups, and you can't afford like very expensive people. So they were kind of interns, and I knew I could teach. I'd been teaching to a certain degree too with my previous experience, so it helped with that. But I didn't care about anything. I didn't care if you. I cared if you maybe had your own website. That was huge for me. I don't know if it's for you when you kind of see someone shows initiative and has made their own website and dabbled. They've got a little bit of interest. So that was really massive. And I guess like English skills and a bit of skills there, here and there. But in the interview, if I could see that they were passionate about tech and online and working and learning, then I was like,
I've said that for a long time too. When I was hiring people back when I was working for a company, I could teach anybody SEO. I really, really could. I could teach anybody web analytics, but I could never teach somebody to be hungry. I couldn't teach them to be curious. I couldn't teach them to be with a strong work ethic. So that's kind of, it's really good news for the listeners because you can do that. That's all within your control. Your work ethic is within your control. Your interest in a topic is within your control. But when it comes to SEO, when it comes to building websites, these things can be taught. These are not like inherited skills that we just woke up with and we're just like, whoa, I just woke up today. I'm naturally good at SEO. This is a total attainable thing.
Yeah, I think those three ones: work ethic, initiative too. I think ability to solve problems. I think we live in a beautiful age where anything can be found on YouTube and the internet if you just
Fortunately
search the
and
right
unfortunately.
things. So I think that was huge for me too. Is just to see someone that had started their own thing and got to a certain point without almost going to university to do a 4-year degree in SEO or whatever it might be, was just to show that they had shown a little bit of initiative.
Honestly, there was people that would come to me that had backgrounds in, or they would had like proper schooling in new digital marketing degrees that have come out. I actually interviewed somebody on one of my previous business podcasts, and these digital marketing degrees are just kind of concocted out of nothing. They just came up with these digital marketing degrees, and they were created by teachers, not digital marketers. So they come out $100,000 in debt, but they don't know anything about what goes into digital marketing. So I would tell people, I come in with no skills. I would rather not have to break something. Come in totally fresh, come in hungry, and you're much more likely to get a job.
100%. I mean, I hire a lot of people who don't have skills, and then they kind of say, hey, Matthew, I want to go and study a web development course, or they want to go to university for 3 to 5 years.
Don't do it.
And I almost say, like, the only reason you should do it is probably for like the social aspect, and like if someone's willing to fund that, or you want to get that life experience, because I think the social aspect in university is like really nice. But to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars getting a degree that's really not going to put you too much ahead of the other person, like rather spend that trying to build your own thing or getting that experience, is so much more valuable. So I'm always curious when these people come with their courses, and I ask them during the internship or during their tenure with me, like, how was this course? What did you learn there as opposed to what are you learning here? And it's always so interesting.
Okay, well, we've covered SEO pretty good. Just so the audience knows, it's an interesting venue to get down into. You can get started with, building websites, updating websites, all that kind of stuff. So really fun. Send me a message if you have any questions about it. Live and breathe this stuff. It's my favorite thing. Let's talk a little bit more about you. So your life living as a digital nomad, what does that do for you? Why do you do this?
I always like travel. So we were fortunate enough to go on like one family holiday a year to a different place if we were lucky. And I always loved that week or 2 week kind of period. So I always knew I wanted to get into travel, and I was passionate about travel. So when I'm on the road, there's just like this feeling of I'm traveling, I'm experiencing different places. And I think there's very few feelings like that. And it's quite hard for other people to understand sometimes, actually. So I think that's the first thing, is that I've just always enjoyed travel. And then there's this sense of freedom. I'm free to go anywhere if the visa allows. And the time zone, I think that's another limitation. But you're kind of free to be like, oh, I don't know where I'm going next month. This Georgia trip was almost like made 2 months ago, which is fairly
That's really planned out.
Actually.
You're saying that like the spur of the moment.
Yeah, normally I plan like 6 months in advance to a certain degree. Yeah. Well, I think I just got screwed over in COVID or after COVID. So I was in an island and there was no accommodation left over, and also in Barcelona and there was no accommodation. I just had to fork out so much money in accommodation. Because I just didn't
You're traumatized.
So now I'm planning. Like now I'm gonna book. Traumatized me. I just stay in like a 54 bedroom dorm and pay like
that's gouging
80 euros for that. And I was like, man, this is not. Yeah, that was so. I think that was traumatizing for me. So now I plan it. So I think those two feelings is just like the ability to travel. I love travel, and that freedom feeling of like I can go somewhere else if I want to, provided the time zone and the visa is okay and you haven't planned. But I think those two big ones, and then you meet such wonderful people. I think that you're exposed to meeting people who share similar work to a certain degree. Like they're working online, so they're probably working in digital marketing, or they're developers, or they're analysts, or they're sometimes working in HR. It's been really interesting the last 3 years or 5 years to see how much different people have joined the digital nomad kind of workforce to a certain degree. So I think that's a nice element too, is learning all these different cultures, like meeting someone from Brazil or New Zealand and the UK, and being able to get to know all these different cultures. I think that's really cool too.
Well, what are some of the aspects that you look for in meeting friends while you're traveling? Like, what kind of qualities are you looking for?
I think just shared interests. I think I have a lot of different interests. So it can be, in psychology, it can be in paddle, it can be SEO, it can be. I think digital nomads are generally more open to ideas too. They're more accommodating of someone else's ideas. So it's more openness and not so close-mindedness. I think we value freedom a lot. I think we really value freedom. And that's one of my biggest values. So I automatically connect with digital nomad people, and it's changed so much in the last 5 years, because you used to go to a hostel or you used to go to an Airbnb or a hotel, and that was a completely different way to kind of do it. And the people at the hostel would maybe prioritize like partying, which is fair. And now my travel is slightly different. I stay in co-livings a lot of the time and try and match up with people who are doing similar things and maybe travel with them. So it's changed quite a lot. So I think freedom is probably the biggest,
generally the common denominator that we all, as us founders, what we talk about and why we got into this, other people that we talk to about why they're digital nomads. That's the common denominator. It's usually freedom. It's the ability to, like you said, just look at some flights and say, I could do that if I wanted to, barring a visa problem, barring accommodation problems, stuff like that. In theory, I can make it happen as long as everything else goes right. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. So let's talk a little bit about locations. What are some of your favorite places that you've been to?
I have like a soft spot for Southeast Asia. Yeah. I know that's quite hard for people in the States. I had an American girlfriend for a while, and she was like, I can only go there for like 2 weeks or a month, and because the time zone is just so bad. But Southeast Asia is just amazing. I think it's hard to limit it to one place. It's like Europe. Europe's amazing too. I think you've been here for the summer. But I have a huge soft spot for Thailand. I think a lot of people do.
I've never been.
I think a lot of people fall into Thailand to a certain degree.
I gotta go. Tell me about it.
So I'm going back in November for an SEO conference, actually. But yeah, I lived in Thailand for 3 years. So I traveled all over Southeast Asia, and Thailand was the one that the people were the friendliest. It's called the land of smiles for a reason. The food is incredible. You can buy a meal for like, I don't know how much now, like $1.50 or $2, or I don't know what it costs, but it's just, it's incredible. They got a huge coffee culture or bubble tea culture, which is really nice. I love the sea. I like the weather. So for me, it's just got so many elements that kind of tick the boxes. Also for me, I work in the European time zone, so it's 5 hours ahead. So it's kind of nice where you can get your work done to a certain degree and be ahead of the time zone, or you have the morning free. So it is nice to kind of you're working at these different times. Southeast Asia definitely is a soft spot. Thailand, Philippines.
What would you say is the most surprising place that you've traveled to that just caught you off guard in a positive way, or even a negative way, or is like a huge culture shock to you? Looks like you got something in mind.
This place hasn't been too bad. This has been a surprise to me. So the only thing I knew about was so bad. So I think with the whole Schengen, more countries joining Schengen, it becomes quite hard for people to pick where they're going to be for 3 months, because you only get 3 months in 180 days. And I didn't think all I knew about this place was this is where wine originated.
It's a good starting point.
Yeah, I love wine. I'm South African, so it is a really good starting point. And I traveled the Balkans a lot last year, and I think what's really sad, well, not sad, it's just hard for me when you go to a train station. It's like, I want to go from here to here. I can't read these signs. Can you help me? And they can't speak English. And it's like, wow, this can be hard to travel. So that's always quite difficult for me. And the English level here has been really high. And I don't know why I thought it would be surprising, because maybe it's so close to Russia, or I'm not too sure. But the English level, maybe because we're in Tbilisi. And it's the capital. So there could be that. The food has been incredible. We did a cooking class together, and we had
Kinkali, yeah. We now know how to make Georgian dumplings.
Yeah, we've got to make some more of that. They seem quite easy to make too. I've never made dumplings, so that was pretty. I must mention that the affordability here hasn't been what I thought it would be. I don't know if that was the same for you. So I thought this would be super cheap, and I think Europe's becoming more expensive. So I'm quite excited to go to Southeast Asia and see if the same thing is happening with this whole more people becoming remote, if they're pushing the prices up, I think this is what's going to happen. But another place I must mention is Kazakhstan. I was in Kazakhstan in January for my brother's wedding. He married a very, very nice Kazakhstanian girl or woman, and we went there. And she had made it sound so terrible. I don't know why. She had said like my brother had made jokes about like you go to a museum and there's no toilet. There's just like a hole, and you got to go do your stuff in this hole. And my perception, obviously, with Borat, which is so bad, and what my brother and her had kind of said, really, I didn't have high expectations. And it was so beautiful. We did skiing there, and it had some of the best skiing that I've ever had or done. And I skied a little bit in Europe quite a bit. The people were quite nice. I had some of the best steaks I had there. I tried horse. I ate some horse. So I think Kazakhstan has this Borat kind
stigma. Yeah, right.
This is what we understand. The stigma. And you go there and it's like nothing like that, of course. But it was a big surprising place. And I think I would probably want to go there in the summer or the autumn to kind of check it out again. Or the stunts. See some of the stunts.
You mentioned earlier, I want to talk a little bit about co-living. Like, what has been your experience in co-living spaces?
I've been a digital nomad almost for 10 years now, or about 10 years, maybe just over. And there wasn't co-livings. There was just, you could choose hostels, not even Airbnb, I don't think was around back then. Hostels and hotels. That was it. And maybe couchsurfing was alive.
Yeah.
But I never got the opportunity to do that. And I think 2 years ago, or a year ago, I stayed in my first co-living. I just heard from someone else who was traveling and staying at a hostel that was nice for people to work from. And he's like, yeah, I stayed in this co-living in Spain or France or whatever. I'm not too sure. And I was like, oh, this is kind of new. And I Googled co-livings and came across one in Spain, Palma co-living, in Mallorca. And it was a little bit pricey, you could say, but it was a really, really cool experience. You know, I stayed with, I think, 10 other people who were in similar kind of careers. There was another SEO there, so that was always nice. And I had a fantastic experience. And I actually traveled with these people for like another 3 or 4 months thereafter to a certain degree. And then we all met back a year later in Palma. And I stayed in a co-living here for a week just to get acclimated. I think it's a really nice way to get acclimated to a new place. Like, a free walking tour is another great way, or a walking tour when you start is a great way. But a co-living is a great way just to build some connections really quickly, get some information, be in a productive space, maybe get a bit of routine going. So yeah, the co-living here was also pretty good, which was called Local. And then I went to one in Montenegro, and man, that was that was crazy.
Good or bad?
So you pay a decent amount. It's like 1,250 euros, which is not terrible. But I arrived there and people were like 30 minutes late. I had to confirm that my booking arrived there and there's no paint, which I think maybe this is normally for Montenegro. Actually. No paint anywhere. My room was like a jail cell. What's how I describe it? No fan, no coffee. The toilet stopped working for like a week. Washing machine, dishwasher stopped working for a week. When it rained, my whole room flooded. It was just like I paid a lot of money to stay in a place that wasn't really great, and it wasn't all remote workers. It was like volunteers to help run the business, which is an adventure activity business. There was like 8 volunteers, and there was like 6 digital nomads. So it was a bit of like it was just a bit different. So I think it's touch and go. I've had pretty good experiences with co-livings. And I've had pretty like weird ones. So I think you just got to read the reviews. But I think it's important to mention, and I don't know if you feel the same way about this, is it's the people that make it the place. So you could be on a tent on a beach and it's not so luxurious, or, you know, it's a bit more difficult, or a tent on the beach is quite nice in my opinion. So maybe like a tent on the streets. But if you're around great people, I think it makes a big difference. So I think you guys have done it pretty well. So you with a group of 20 or 30 people here almost in a WhatsApp. Yeah, Danny working on Nomadico, where you can see where people are going, because normally how I would do this is I never used to post my travel calendar on my Instagram, and then people would kind of see, oh, I'm going to be there in March, I'm going to be there, and then that would be a good way. Or when I land in a place, I normally tag the first restaurant I go to. I normally just tag London or whatever, and then people would message me. when you meet people in the place, it makes it a lot easier and nicer to travel to a certain degree. So I think it must be said that like co-living is nice, and just meeting like-minded.
I completely agree with you because I've traveled with all, as you can imagine, all sorts of people. Traveled alone to a certain extent, and you can have a total party atmosphere, which colors your entire experience of traveling to a new place. You can have like a super travel with people that are very work centered, and it was working late into the night, and that also colors your experience a little bit too. It can get a little too business like. And then also traveled in. I actually just got back from. I was in Serbia at a co-living. Actually, I think other than Wi-Fi Tribe, the only like official like grounded co-living space, and it was pretty cool because they had the co-working space attached to it, like right across like one building over to another building. All the meals covered, that whole thing, and so it was like you had everything all your life planned out for you. So the rest of the time you could focus on building relationships and working and just kind of doing whatever you wanted to do. So it can be like a really nice soft landing into a place for people that maybe a little bit gun shy to pull the trigger. It's
Yeah, 100%. I think it's one of the easiest ways to do it. And I think that, there was like Remote Year and Wi-Fi Tribe and Hacker Paradise and all these kind of other programs. And I think that I personally feel, I don't know if other people probably feel the same, but the price point of them is quite high. So these co-livings are slightly less than them, and you kind of get a lot of the experience where you do build a community and you do not have to think about traveling from one place to the next place. Because I think that's also something that's maybe not spoken about too much, is the taxing energy. This is why I plan so much in advance now. That it's like, okay, I'm gonna now book my flights and I'm gonna take like 3 hours. I initially just pull the trigger very quickly, but I'm one that kind of analyzes when's the best day to go and what is it, what's it gonna cost me. And so I think it's quite nice when you stay in these places for 1 month and you get to actually immerse yourself in the culture. One, you don't have to think too much about like, okay, breakfast or dinner, because you can kind of go out to lunch or dinner with these places, or maybe the co-living supplies it. So yeah, I've never done one of these Wi-Fi tribes. There's a lot of people here around that kind of do them. There's so many of these programs.
Yeah, that's how me and Marissa. Well, that's how I got started. That's how we met, and that's how Diego, co-founder, started Wi-Fi Tribe. So he's like kind of the uniting force for the three of us. We all met in a Bolivia Wi-Fi Tribe chapter. Out of all places, he's got a family place there, and we all met there, and it's super remote, so you really get to know the people well, and you get a lot of adventures to go on and stuff. So it's been a long time since I've been on one. I kind of built my own little community. Well, now it's 30 people, but yeah, we've got this community of people that we travel with. But yeah, I think I went on like 4 or 5 of those, and just all different locations. I loved it for building the community, and especially some of those more remote places that are, like you mentioned, really taxing to figure out logistics. It's like, can I get Wi-Fi? Can I get decent accommodations? Like, am I going to make friends? Where do I get food? All this kind of stuff. When that's covered for you, it's like, that's kind of nice, especially in some of those more like non-Mexico City or like Medellin locations that are just like already laid out for you perfectly. It's kind of nice to get that. So it's like, yeah, for me, it was kind of a good starting point. The co-living also, yeah, I think it depends on the co-living. Some of them, like the Selena, seems a little bit like people come and go. It's a little bit more transactional. You might get people that are not so serious about it. You're like quasi backpacker level.
Yeah, I think you got to find your tribe and who you kind of relate to the most, and eventually you find the way of travel. But I think that's such a good point. I didn't think about that too much with the Wi-Fi Tribe kind of programs, is that it's all set out and done for you. And I think it's one of the best entry points where you don't have to think about, is this accommodation going to be good because it's kind of vetted?
Yeah.
Are the people going to be decent because they're kind of vetted? There's a lot of like these pre-things where like I've arrived in a hostel and it's a party hostel, and I'm like, man, I'm trying to work. It's just a terrible experience because you booked it for like 5 days or 7 days, and it's just not what you anticipate. You either got to jump in and go party and do it, or you're just going to be a bit unsafe for 3 to 5 days, or go find somewhere else. So yeah, I think there's all these different vehicles that allow you to travel differently now, and you kind of. I've never done a Wi-Fi tribe, one of those, because I think I've been traveling previously and I had a little bit of a tribe previously, but I think if you want to get a tribe quickly and jump into it, it's probably one
So,
of the best
like,
ways to do
looking
it.
at your experience now, you've been doing this 10 years now. What kind of travel are you doing? How do you fit into it? Are you in the work a ton and then go out on the weekends kind of thing? Or, like, yeah, what kind of traveler are you?
I love my work. So like I'm quite lucky to work in travel marketing. It's not like boring, like I'm selling washing machines. Maybe washing machines are interesting to some people, but travel is quite nice. And I've always enjoyed my work. I've always enjoyed working online and being able to check stats and sit with my laptop and watch something. So I think I work a lot less now. I used to work like 10, 12, 15-hour days when I was traveling, which is pretty crazy. But I was always working in startups, and they
Yeah.
work hard and they don't, but you have to give them a lot of time in the beginning. So now I go through phases. So in Tbilisi, I'm actually working a ton because in Mallorca, Spain, I didn't work that much. I was maybe working 3 to 4 hours a day, which for me is not a lot. Now I'm working about, I think I put my time tracking the other day. It was like 8 hours, 8 productive
Yeah.
hours, which is quite a lot actually. You're only productive for like 4 to 5. So I think I go through phases. I'm working really hard now because I'm going to Thailand next month, and I know that there's this conference that happens, but it's quite debaucherous. I do travel conferences too, and a lot of the time, those are also like they take you to all these places and you're doing tours. So I think I go through phases, and it depends on the place. Sometimes you arrive and you're like, wow, I love this place. And sometimes the energy agrees with you. Like, okay, I'm feeling really productive in this space, or I'm not. So it really depends. I don't know if
Oh,
you feel the same
yeah,
way,
yeah,
go through
absolutely.
waves.
And when you mentioned the different hour allotments that you go through, the phases, yeah, I've had periods when I'm traveling where it's like, yeah, maybe just 3, 4 hours a day. But what people don't understand is generally when you're traveling and working, or even when you're just working remote and you're an actual like good worker, you're good at working remote, that's 4 productive hours. And generally people that go to an office work a productive like 2.5 to 3 hours in an 8.5 hour day. So like you're most of the time, the people I'm working with and when I'm working, even if I only work 4 hours, it is a hard dedicated 4 hours, and it's generally a full work day in an office because you can work 4 hours and be totally mentally spent. You're drained. You like emptied the tank on those 4 hours.
100%. I think that's one of the travel hacks to a certain degree, where you want one, you don't have to commute, but two, you want to get stuff done. Like someone's like, okay, we're going for dinner at 7 p.m. And you're like, shit, I got 3 hours of work to get in, and like I need to get that work in before 7 p.m. Or someone's gonna go on this, elephant feeding tour, and you want to go feed the elephants, but you got to get stuff done. And I think in an office, you kind of, sometimes twiddling your thumbs for 6 to 8 hours, kind of waiting for stuff to come in and not being in a productive space. So I do think, like a lot of my team, when they go nomadic, I'm always so curious to find out from them is like, were they more productive? Were they working more hours, or were they working less hours and being productive? And I love having those conversations because some people thrive in it. Most of my team thrive in it, but it's really cool that you can get your stuff done in 3 to 4 or 5 hours. So yeah, it is one of those travel hacks of like, because also you're slightly more happier, I think. So you're exploring and then you're
Yeah.
working and you go through these kind of waves of.
It's kind of up to you. That's the fun part about it. Is like I generally start the day early. I'm not like an afternoon type of worker, so I'll start and I'll knock out 4 really hard hours, and then I'll just go and meet up some friends and like usually like, play some sport in the middle of the day. I play paddle like we did, and then I'll take away 3 hours, something you could never do at an office job, and then go back to work after that. So you're kind of doing all the things that you want to do. You're doing your work, you're getting exercise, you're getting socializing in, and you're doing it on your own time clock, which is like unheard of to a lot of people.
Yeah, you can really break your day up with an activity, and you're almost starting fresh. Your brain's not tired, and you can start
Yeah.
again. You can do another
Whereas
2 3 hours.
you
of
just
hard
have
work.
diminishing
So-
returns if you just sat at your computer and your brain was dust, and you're thinking in your head, I have to work 8 hours. Well, not in a row. You're just going to sit there and make mistakes, and your brain is going to start spinning its gears. So if you break up your day, go do some touristy thing, get some exercise or something, you can hit it with a new fresh brain, and you got like a whole new reset to the rest of your afternoon. It's awesome. Didn't realize we were going to get into digital nomad hacks, but that's definitely one of them. Matt, this has been an awesome conversation. Thanks so much for joining me. And in wrapping up, where would you want to send the audience?
I have a blog, Life from a Bag, and it just lists all the co-living and Airbnbs and hostels that kind of are good for digital nomads to kind of work at, I guess. And yeah, it's good for a variety of things. So Life from a Bag, Travel Attractions Marketing is my marketing agency. I think those are the two places. But I'm on Instagram, Matt Davison, if you want to pop me a message.
Definitely check out that travel website, because it is really hard to find consolidated lists of places to go. Like Danny, who was previously a guest before, is doing a good job with it on Nomadigo. It's helping to see where things are, but getting that firsthand experience and getting that write out and almost like an itinerary